Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Jamesy Wamesy Show. A quick shout out to my boy Jerk Comics. If you really want the skinny on Sam Kieth, check out his videos. The guy truly puts in the work, and there'll be a link in the comments below. Now he puts in the work to the point that he was flown to Mike Allred's home to participate in a documentary. Such is his reputation for accuracy. You'll also notice that in the middle of the screen I'm drawing a Max commission. Occasionally, I'll cover the entire screen to make a point or to tell Sam's story the way I see fit. Also, you'll notice I only use art besides the Max stuff. This isn't because the Max isn't an incredible book. It's more that we pretty much all grew up on the stuff. We, the sad old dudes who grew up on spinner racks and remember a time before Bon Jovi. Sometimes I'll interrupt the narrative flow to discuss my commission, but the real focus will be on Sam Kieth. Now, before we begin the story, I figure we start with some trivia. My first bit of trivia is that Cow and Chicken, the animated show, is actually created by Sam's cousin David Feiss on the Cartoon Network. Sam actually co-wrote the very first episode of Cow and Chicken. David, in turn, had drawn a couple panels in the Max comic. Trivia number 2. Michael Haley, the voice of the Max on the MTV show, was billed in the Diablo video game. He passed away in 2025. Number 3 is a little controversial. It says that the Max's first appearance is Darker Image number 1, and that's unless you count Max the Hare and Comico Primer number 5. And here we have the tools I use in the commission I'm working on right now. I've got my number 3 pencil, and I've got a couple of pens. I have 4 there, but I only ended up using a couple of them. In fact, these 2 right here. It turned out that was all I really needed. And this commission, I'm starting with fresh pencils. Now, this is my favorite page from the Sandman books. I really love the details, and all the creatures look very distinct from each other. It's a really cool double page spread. Oh, and one last bit of trivia. On his artistic influences, he listed Frank Frazetta, Al Williamson, Arthur Sudam, Bernie Wrightson, Sal and John Buscema, Don Heck, Russ Andrew, and Ernie Chan. Now, after Bernie, he was saying that those are people that you don't really see a lot of people list. I say the Buscemas you see listed these days, but before that, they were kind of just ignored as mainstream fodder. All right, and now Chapter 1, Inking Mage. Mage was a Comico comic starting in the 80s. The main character, Kevin Matchstick, is a stand-in for series creator Matt Wagner. The inks were by our subject today, Sam Kieth. I pulled this from the Comics Journal 165. The interviewer asks, "Where did you meet Sam?" And Matt Wagner replies, he had submitted a short story to Comico for Primer. He just had a nice brush style. I wanted someone organic, not somebody more mechanical in the Terry Austin style. I didn't even meet Sam until the promotional tour I did. So we had already been working together 3 months or so before we ever met. Sam had taken over the inks of Mage with the 4th issue, and there was a vast improvement in Matt's artwork. And I quote, "Something that really made a big impression on me is the series Matt Wagner did, Grendel. It was very stylistic with the designs of the pages. He tried to say when he did Mage it was very minimal. He tried to say, I'm not going to draw a panel that's interesting so much as one that tells the story. And it worked. You get hypnotized. Some artists will go for the dramatic. I still feel it's a war in me. I still feel part of me wants to draw great looking panels, which fights the part that wants to tell a cinematic story that would probably have 24 panels per page." Sam Kieth. Sam inked the Made series for the rest of the 15-issue run of the original series. Chapter 2, 1989, Year of the Sandman. Sam Kieth co-created The Sandman with Neil Gaiman. That was a good thing about Sandman, Sam says. Neil let me come up with parts of it. Unquote. Despite how quickly Sam was gone from The Sandman, he always had a healthy respect for Gaiman. Neil likes to think he's mysterious, and, as far as I can tell, he is. I've talked to him many times, and I'm still baffled by some of our conversations. Basically, he's a really polite guy, and I think he would just like to tell a really good story. Sam decided to quit the book because he didn't feel the situation was right for him, says Mike Drinkenberg. Regarding the third issue of Sandman, he further expanded. We wanted a more illustrated feel for that one because it was centered more in reality. Sam left his pencils a lot looser. He gave me more breakdowns than tight pencils. And I went in and I repenciled areas and just sort of inked it in a more illustrative style. Neil Gaiman chimed in. Sam Kieth is a terrific artist. He wasn't happy on Sandman. I had a long chat with him the other day, and he was talking about how these days he's really getting into storytelling. He wasn't too into storytelling at the time. What he was into was design, and what I was into was storytelling. He expands. What Sam drew resembled the script, but he did a lot of things that weren't in the script and changed a lot of stuff. As our working relationship improved, and once we knew each other a bit, I knew what he liked to draw. Sam says, I have ideas for stories, and I'm interested in co-plotting, but that's as far as I can go. For actual words, I'd want to work with Bill Loebs or Neil Gaiman or Peter David. Sam Kieth. This is long before Sam left to work on the Max. True to his word, the Max would feature William Messner Loebs for the majority of the series. Chapter 3, Hulk 368 from 1990. He followed up the inking job with any work he could find. For Fish Police, he did inks, and even contributed a pinup. He actually got to draw issues 6 through 8 of the classic adolescent radioactive black belt hamsters for the now defunct Eclipse Comics. For Fantagraphics, he did several shorts in pioneering series Critters. Slowly but surely, he was getting some mainstream gigs, like inking Infinity Inc. and Manhunter, both for DC Comics in 1988 and 89. He even did a Nightmare on Elm Street pinup in 89 for Marvel Comics. And then came Incredible Hulk 368. Truly his big break. The issue was done in 2 days, as the book was cranked out by Sam and an extremely talented Kelly Jones. I asked Peter David for a Green Hulk. This was in the gray Joe Fixit era, and he said, "I'm not about to write a stupid character for one issue so you can have the color green. Pretend he's green when you ink him." The Hulk story was very well received, and planted seeds not only in Peter David's fertile imagination, but in the eyes of Hulk fans everywhere. In fact, it was on Wizard's list of top 5 Hulk stories of all time, though it was beaten out by George Perez's Hulk Future Imperfect. This is relevant to the big picture, and I'll tell you why later in this very video. Okay, I figure we'll look at how the commission is going. It looks like right now I'm working on the arm of the Max. I see his pointer finger there. Little known fact is that he dips his arms in molten lava to get that yellow effect on his arms. Pretty cool little detail. Here we get a better shot of everything. I hope you guys can see the pencils underneath there. Oh, here we have a cover of Marvel Comics Presents, featuring Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange. Very nice in black and white. Chapter 4. Epicurus the Sage, from 1989 to 1991. We now jump to Sam Kieth and William Messner Loeb's collaboration. Before the Max, they worked on a book called Epicurus the Sage, or Epicurus the Sage, as I've been corrected many a time. And I quote, "The public has been crying out for a hard-hitting, two-fisted satire of ancient Greek philosophy, and we're giving it to them," joked William Messner Loebs. Sam Kieth and William Messner Loebs met in 1983 at the long-running San Diego Comic-Con. Harvey Kurtzman was putting on a seminar, but too little, too late. The seminar was booked to capacity, but the two connected over comic books. They would work together a few years later on Epicurus the Sage for Piranha Press, the appropriately named offshoot of DC Comics. This was the first pairing of Sam Kieth and future colorist of the Max, Steve Olive. Olive was the colorist for the Marvel reprints of Akira, and is, in my opinion, the only person to successfully colorize any manga for the Western world. Epicurus was later collected as a trade paperback by Wildstorm. Chapter 5. Aliens Hive Mind, 1990. Meanwhile, there was an Alien miniseries for Dark Horse Comics. Talking to Comic Scene magazine, Sam said, "I was talking to Mike Richardson at Dark Horse Comics, and he was very enthusiastic in suggesting if I had any houses I wanted to buy, that an Alien miniseries might just do the job. I didn't believe him, but it was the truth. After months of using the Alien movies as a reference, he declared, "Oh man, I hate those movies. I had to look at those movies so many times and freeze frame them. Somebody stole my VCR and the Alien cassette inside of it, and I didn't even care." He goes on to say that fans were amazed that I tried to look realistic and cartoony in the same story. Now, Kieth lamented the arbitrary changes the studio, 20th Century Fox, would impose, usually without even telling Dark Horse or the artists. They made odd changes. They shaved off all the women's hips, making them look top heavy. If you're going to shave off the hips, let's take the breasts too, so I don't look breast infatuated. Okay, I figure we'll take a break here and look at the actual commission here. We're a long way past the claw now, way past the pencil stage into the inks, but still a long way off before we get to the color part. I remember having a lot of fun on this one, but I wasn't too happy with how the colors do turn out. But I hope the person that commissioned the piece is going to enjoy it. Right now, I believe I'm drawing the character's knee. This is, of course, the max to keep on track with what this video is actually about. Of course, when I say that, ironically, a picture of the Hulk comes up. Okay, I'll check back in with you in a little bit regarding the commission. All right, back to Chapter 5. 20th Century Fox couldn't use Sigourney Weaver's likeness without paying her royalties. She wasn't, and I quote, in my version, and couldn't be. Legally, 20th Century Fox would have had to pay Sigourney Weaver to use her likeness in the third series. So in the first two series, people were clamoring for Ripley to come back, and there was an expectation that she would look like Sigourney Weaver. Dark Horse told me specifically, "We don't want to pay Sigourney Weaver a bunch of money. We can't afford to. We're not interested. So don't do it. Draw her to look like anything but a middle-aged woman." "She barely even looked female with me drawing it," Sam joked. Sam's final verdict on the aliens' Earth War experience? "It was fun overall, but we could have done a better job if there had been certain things. I'm not blaming anybody, but Kelly Jones is doing a new Aliens, and it looks like he's going to have his time and preparation necessary to make it look good." Chapter 6, Wolverine Blood Hungry, 1991. It's weird when you get work, everyone wants to give you work. But when you're looking for work, no one wants to give it to you. Aliens was a nice jumpstart, but then things really started to get strange after the Wolverine stuff. It was nice in a way, before all this, and I don't mean to whine about it now, but it's different. I can't complain though, because I could have said to myself, "Hey, I'll draw Wolverine in a popular way so I get the attention." Instead, I get to draw Wolverine the way I want to, the way I would want to draw him even if I was 13. And I happen to like drawing characters with poor anatomy. It's a personal desire. That's horrible, I know. But I enjoy the way I draw Wolverine, and I guess other people do as well. Alright, back to the commission. It hasn't really gone that far since we last checked in. Now I'm adding some detail to the boots. I always liked the way that Sam added a lot of detail to the boots, but of course I'm adding my own kind of details here. This was really fun to draw, of course. I usually don't even have his feet in a lot of my commissions, but this was a rare example of a time that I did it that way. Oh, here comes the Hulk again. But here's the pencils to go alongside of the finished version. I never really cared for the airbrushing that they put on the original Wizard covers. I thought it took away from the actual original art. Here we have the Cadillacs and Dinosaurs cover. These were always nice. It's nice to see dinosaurs take the spotlight for once. Now I'm working on the little roundy thing on the side of his boots. I don't even know what you would call that. If that has a specific name, I guess throw it in the comments, because I'm stifling my brain to find out what it's called. And here was Sam Kieth's homage to the famous John Byrne image of Wolverine in the sewers during the Dark Phoenix saga. I always liked his reimagination of it. Unfortunately, I'm drawing a little off the camera screen. Sorry about that, folks. Nope, now I'm kind of visible now. I'm back to over where I was. Now here, I rarely see him doing a Spider-Man piece, so it was cool to find this cover to Marvel Tales. I missed a lot of those covers growing up because I was buying off the spinner racks, so if they didn't have the books, I basically never saw them. Okay, and now back to the chapter. Sam Kieth. There's some little stuff I tried to put in there in the Peter David Wolverine story. I don't know if people caught it or not. In one of the stories, I put in the bulldog from Rocketeer. The one with the pipe. I'm a big fan of Dave Stevens, so I put the bulldog in one of the dream sequences, and nobody caught it. Regarding the script Peter David contributed, Sam volunteered this. That was odd. Even Peter would tell you, in the beginning, it was pretty detailed. And towards the middle, when he found out I was doing it, it got less so. Initially, he thought Todd McFarlane was going to draw it. And when Todd had to back out, I got it. And Peter said, if Sam's going to do this, let's really make it weird. According to comic scene number 23, the reason Sam had replaced Todd was because Todd had redesigned Wolverine's costume, and they rejected his design at Marvel, and Todd quit. They asked me if I wanted to do it at the last minute. This is Sam Kieth. So, I had to fill Todd McFarlane's shoes, and the story takes place right after Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X ends. I had to follow him too. Now here's a back and forth with Sam Kieth and Wizard. Sam says, did Peter tell you about the eyeball thing? And Wizard says no. And Sam says, there's a part where Wolverine rips out the villain's eyeball out of his socket. puts it in his mouth and spits it out. When Peter told me this originally, he described it very vividly and as a very violent scene. I thought he was asking for it to be very graphic. I made it way too graphic. I forgot that kids were going to read this. Everybody said, "Are you nuts?" And I agreed, so I changed it. Peter David. I spoke to Sam about it, asking, "What would you like to draw?" He said, "I would like to draw a giant hot dog cart in the shape of a hot dog, and a couple other bizarre images. They were all such utterly disconnected, disjointed images that I thought, how am I going to do a hot dog cart in Madripoor? It doesn't even make sense." Also, around this time, Twin Peaks had started, and it was this incredibly bizarre show. I said to myself, I think I'll do a story that is Wolverine's answer to Twin Peaks. This will be one of the most bizarre and outrageous Wolverine stories anybody has ever seen. As a result, that's the story we wound up with. Let's see if we can do a story that's so weird and filled with symbolism that it will get the fans talking. Because we wanted to do something that would be able to follow Weapon X. That's exactly what we came up with. In order to make the story as bizarre as possible, I only wrote it at 3 a.m, he laughed. I'd go to bed at like 11 o'clock at night, set my alarm for 3 a.m., get up at 3 a.m., sit down at the computer and type up a Wolverine story that was virtually stream of consciousness. That's what we wound up getting. To my shock, the story actually holds up extremely well. I would have thought it would be extremely disjointed and have virtually no connection from beginning to end. Yet it isn't, which surprised me a great deal. Chapter 7. Enter the Max. After the two were well established in the industry, Messner Loebs having written dozens of Flash and Wonder Woman comics, while Sam had drawn a well-received Wolverine story, as we had discussed, and dozens of beautiful covers. The two tried their luck with the newly formed Image Comics. And I quote, "Sam brought me on because I have a little more experience in terms of plotting a comic book than he had. He had a lot of ideas and wanted to be able to do a comic that was his own. I'm sort of an editor/mentor. William Messner Loeb. I had a lot of ideas to get in, and while I don't yet have the skill to write, I wanted to get it as close as possible. The only person I could think of that could help me, but also get out of my way enough to do it, was Bill. It's a challenging collaboration sometimes. Sam is one of the most serious-minded people I've ever worked with. He's not only concerned with what we're doing, but why we're doing it." William Messner Loebs. In terms of how the characters speak, that's mostly me. The is, Mr. Gone, the Max, these are all Sam's ideas. And were, in fact, they were all heroes of their own series that never actually got drawn. That's right, Mr. Gone was originally a hero. This reminds me a bit of the Savage Dragon, how Eric Larson used to draw different Dragon comics before hitting the big time. Only Sam Kieth only imagined the archetypes and the roles the characters would play later on. He didn't actually publish any comics. The book premiered at the number 3 spot on the top 100 books of the first month. I think the success of the Max, especially all these years after its initial run, is Sam's willingness to know his limits, to not count on Alan Silvestri or Jim's unestablished friend Brandon Choi to try to make sense of their ideas. It took a real writer like Bill Lowe's to make the Max resonate. I think it would be awfully painful for people to have to get the idea of what I'm trying to convey without Bill's input. I know what I'm trying to say, and I know what I want the characters to feel, and I will actually suggest things to Bill. I'm trying to avoid changing what he writes just to be different. To avoid saying, I like what you've written, but here's what I wanted them to say. Once you tear apart the words, you're left with what you're trying to say and the way you say it. By issue 4, Sam made a visual statement regarding his former colleague Neil Gaiman. In particular, his romanticized version of death in the very series Sam had co-created, The Sandman. All I was trying to have Sarah say there was that the concept of death had become a whole flip, hip, slicked, black clothes-wearing, romantic, dramatic thing. Karen Berger, Neil Gaiman, and Mike Drinkenberg liked that, and I didn't. That was supposed to be the reference. Now people think I hate Neil, and I don't. Kieth. Chapter 8. Alan Moore. And I quote, Alan Moore did more on the first 14 pages than the rest of the issue, number 21, since the direction of the book forced his ending to be amended. He is great to work with, and I hope we can do it again. I appreciate the creative boost he gave the book. Sam Kieth. Alan Moore did his usual retcon, turning everything on its head up to that point. He presupposed that one of the villains of the series turned out to be misunderstood by the cast. Sam struck me as someone who knows exactly what was said and why he said it the first time. This was not a comic in need of reinvention like Wildcats or Supreme. To me, the series never really recovered. By issue 24, William Messner Loebs left the book, leaving Sam to finally write alone. To lead off issue 24's letters page, Sam wrote, Well, it finally happened. Between Bill's schedule of doing 5 other books and him trying to nudge me into writing a few issues of my own, I've decided to own up to the madness that I've started and write this book myself. While I miss Bill terribly, he'll have more time to work on Journey and other projects that are his. Aftermath. A couple of years earlier, when Sam was trying his hand at Marvel, he talked of being warned that certain Marvel editors wouldn't cotton to his non-house-style approach. But his editor at the time, Terry Cavanaugh, gave him zero editorial resistance. Prior to that, his idiosyncratic style was rejected. And I quote, "Every company that's out there, I showed my work to them, and they said no. Now, if there's even a small group around me, what I want to say, if somebody is looking at me and they're thinking, that guy seems to have appeared overnight, I want to say, you know all those bad drawings in your closet that you're using like little bodies to stand on to get out of the tube you're in? I've been there. I've tasted the failure you've tasted. I say it and people just don't hear it. I know now that the problem is that nobody will ever hear me because they're convinced that people working at Image are all millionaires and have no problems." Along the way, there were projects that never manifested. And I quote, "They offered me a Ghost Rider story after Wolverine Blood Hungry in the same spot in Marvel Comics Presents. As a kid, I liked the character, who used to ride around on the old Easy Rider chopper, but now they've got him in an Akira-like bike." Unquote. He also mentioned 2 painted 48-page god-awful Hulk stories. That's in quotes, by the way, that's not me saying that. Which never manifested. In my research, I reached the conclusion that this went on to be the Peter David and George Perez masterwork, Future Imperfect. Bobby Chase. Behind the Scenes with Hulk, Future Imperfect, or Why Imperfect Was So Perfect. Hulk Future Imperfect was truly the perfect project to work on. My thanks go to Peter David and George Perez for creating this wonderful work. But they also must go to artist Sam Kieth for getting the ball rolling. Years back, Sam used to send me samples of the Hulk with notes saying, "I love this character. I want to draw this character." And it was with Sam in mind that this project was originally conceived. After Peter and Sam enjoyed working on Hulk issue 365 and decided to do a project together, we'd never done one for the Hulk before, and I realized that this was the perfect team to do it. Peter had a wonderful idea for a Hulk in an alternate future story, and Sam did this great sketch of the Maestro. So the three of us sat down at lunch at the San Diego Comic Convention and watched Peter pull the piece de la Resistance, that wonderful gamma explosion ending, out of his head. The 30th anniversary of the Hulk was approaching. The timing was perfect, and everything was going smoothly for Sam to start. When the dream shattered, and Sam had to back out, much to his regret and ours. Our hopes were dashed, and Peter and I moped about our dreams being destroyed. When George Perez called Peter, did the man read our minds? He actually told Peter he wanted to work with him sometime, and could Peter keep George in mind? And yes, he had some free time now. So Peter told me to call George, and I did. Don't I work hard? Peter quickly put the project together, reworking the things to make the perfect David/Perez project, and the rest is in print for public enjoyment. As you can see, I worked very hard at making this project perfect. As I recall, the first issue even printed and shipped to the stores a week early. Truly an editor's perfect dream project. This sounds crazy. Maybe it wasn't a dream. Maybe it was a hallucination. Or maybe an alternate history. Okay, we are back, and we are now coloring the sketch. No, actually, we're still inking the sketch. This is taking a lot longer than I remember. We're at the 41-minute mark now, and I'm still working on the boots. Oh, here's Shadowhawk as interpreted by Sam Kieth. That's a cool, rarely seen one. I believe I put it up in black and white. Whether I put it before or it's coming up, I'm not sure. Yeah, notice I haven't even gotten to the head yet. So I've got a ways to go before I get to the coloring. And this video is, what, an hour and 27 minutes long? Here we go. That's from the first issue of Sandman. Still adding a lot of little lines and little details to the boots. It's quite the process. Alright, let's get back to it. Okay, as a bonus, I figure I'd read you the entirety of the Marvel Age interview. It was conducted in issue 102, and the interviewer was Mark Lackey. I'm going to read these. I'm going to give you their names first as I read them, and then I'm just going to skip the names of the people. Hopefully you'll be able to keep up. If things get confusing, maybe I'll throw the names back in. Okay, if you guys are ready, here we go. Mark Lackey. Hi, Sam. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us. Sam. Oh, sure. Mark. We're going to start off with a really boring question. What was your first published work for Marvel? Well, I did a Nightmare on Elm Street pinup and the Hulk fill-in. I'm hoarding copies of that one, speculating on whether they'll go up in value. I hear there are rumors that people are having trouble finding copies of it. That's really because I have all the copies. How did you get the Hulk job? Well, after the Nightmare thing, the assistant editor took it to the Hulk assistant editor. I like dealing with the assistants because they're all so energetic. Well, the editors must have liked you too. So, they gave you the Hulk job? Yeah, I was expecting this stuff to get flung right out the window. This was right before Dale Keown took over the book. Dale's art, I think, is actually better for Hulk than mine. It's more superhero looking. His stuff's great. He's very popular right now. Yeah, he is. It's bizarre how things are speeding up for me right now. If you do a popular character, you're hot. Then you get the illusion that it's you that they like. Pretty much you're standing on the shoulders of the characters you do. Did you have a tough time getting into the mainstream comics business because your stuff is so different from the norm? Sam, not really. I read the Mark's Remarks column in Marvel Age a few issues back about the odds of getting in the business. And I'd be depressed if I was really trying to break in right now. It's a really tough thing to do, but you've just got to keep trying. Basically, there are 3 levels of people in the industry. Level 1 are the guys trying to break in at ground level, with hopes of doing the big Marvel titles. When they don't have a lot of luck, people tell them to just try and work at smaller companies just to get published. And the smart ones do. You get work published at smaller houses and work your way up from there. Okay, level 1.5 is that occasional freak guy who gets into the big time right off the bat. But there's really aren't too many of them, so don't delude yourself. Level 3 are the guys who work on the popular books. They get the better projects, X-Men, or say Spider-Man, and get the better royalties because they're higher up on the ladder. These guys have the options to pretty much pick and choose the work they do. But still, readers are buying Spider-Man, not say Joe Artist. Like I said, standing on the character's shoulders. Finally, you've got level 4, which are superstars in the industry. Let's use Frank Miller as an example. He can come onto a book and sales go up. Not because of whatever character he's doing per se, but because the people want to read Frank Miller. People are seeing the character first at this level, not the character. That's 4.5 levels. Well, I'm at a point at this particular time where I can pick and choose what I do to an extent. It's nice to be able to do pretty much anything that I want. Where did you study art? Well, I didn't, and I suffer for it. I'm self-taught mostly, and years later, I had to relearn what I ignored in school. I try to be aware of my limitations, perspective beyond the 1, 2, 3 point, spiral staircases from hell, and so forth. I know my work is cartoony. I try to pepper realism. I try and do it consciously because I know what I like. When people say to me, "Your stuff's cartoony," I say, "I know. It's on purpose." Mike. But it's based in reality. That's the important distinction. Some guys can go crazy and wildly distort reality. Take Simonson, for example. But the guy can actually draw. Other guys will go all nutty. But you don't get the impression that they're doing it for the right reasons. And Sam? Yeah, but everyone has a few core fans. Yeah, my brother Bob was really excited when I mentioned I'd be doing this interview. He's a big fan of your Critters work. Really? That takes me too far back. Every once in a while I'll be at a con and someone will bring up a huge stack of that stuff, asking me for that one issue they'd missed. There's so much more of a following with the Wolverine stuff, though. Was your comics illustrations always a goal of yours? Yeah, because there were already too many skinny white guys in rock and roll. So I decided to go this route. Instead, when I'd play guitar, people would be nice and everything, but they showed much more enthusiasm when I draw. Drawing for me was never any big deal, and it came so much easier to me than music. Which, actually, is what a lot of people said to me. That music may be hard, but listening to my music was harder. Wah, wah. Mike. Notice that Mike is getting a nerdier voice every time. Here's an obligatory interview type question. How did the Blood Hungry project come about? Well, after the Hulk job, the assistants passed my work around, this time to Terry Conneval. We got to talking, by phone of course, and he mentioned that he had a Wolverine story that Todd McFarlane was going to do. But it didn't work out for whatever reason. I think we discussed the reasons earlier, folks. And he wanted to use me. Them's some pretty big shoes to fill, man. Now, if that wasn't enough to floor me, he said that my story would be following Barry Windsor Smith's Weapon X storyline. So, I picked myself up off the floor, and I hosed myself off. I grew up reading Barry Smith. I was one nervous weenie boy when I learned that I'd be following Barry Smith. Sam, come on. Don't be so self-effacing. You've already referred to yourself as a skinny white guy and a weenie boy. It's nice, ain't it? I'm not into the deeper implications of Magneto slugging the radioactive man. I know I'm full of it, and it's really no big deal. Now, tell us a little bit about Blood Hungry. Well, it's incredibly bizarre. The story starts out gritty, then works into some dream sequences, which feature the 1950s Logan in high school, and the villain is the coach. There's some malt shop type stuff, and some hot rod cars made from Oscar Mayer type weenie mobiles, which are some real phallic symbols. We don't have those in New York. The weenie mobiles are all over California. Big, long fiberglass jobs. They're like a 14-foot long weenie in a bun with an Oscar Mayer logo on the side. You said that it's a car that they drive around and sell weenies from. Anyway, you've got to keep an open mind on the strangeness in the story. It's gonna be great for those people who always complain that they've seen the same Wolverine and the same stories too many times. This one didn't start out this odd, and Peter says he blames me for all the weird stuff, especially the weenie cars. I take it that your creative relationship with Peter was more of a co-plotter than strictly an artist. Yeah, unlike the Hulk thing, where I was pretty much a hired hand. When I started the story, Peter only had a few chapters written, and he asked me to come up with stuff. Well, I came up with stuff. Then, I had to take a short break to work on an aliens book, and by the time I'd come back, he'd forgotten about them. but he really took my ideas and ran with them. There was a cat that I drew in the villain's house. Just a cat, in the chair, stuck in the corner, no big deal, you know? Peter picked up on, played with it, and came up with these parallels to Tiger and her relationship to Logan. I'd also suggested we do the climax of the story with these guys dangling from trees, like monkeys or something. And he went with it. Peter's a hell of a writer, probably the best that Marvel has. Your work is stunningly different. You're so excited. You're pumping me up here. Do you do this with everybody? No, Sam. Hey, if you weren't so good, I wouldn't be talking to you. The fact is, your work is stunningly different from any other artist in the Marvel stable. Was that by accident or design? Man, what a question. Why don't you ask me why my foot is shaped like it is? Did I grow it that way? Or did I flatten it out with a hammer? Actually, it's probably a little bit of both. My work is a synthesis of the styles I admired when I was developing as an artist. When my work looks underground, it's because I see it in my mind as a Bernie Wrightson type drawing. When my work seems more pop, it's because I see it as a Terry Austin type drawing. If I'm doing, say, a rocky cliff, I'd be going the Frank Frazetta route. Okay, that's the first 2 pages of the interview. I hope my nerdy voice isn't too nerdy. I think it sounds a little bit like David Lynch. I see I'm coloring now. I've got some purple going down there on the shoulders. There we go. Here's Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange, 2 of his favorite characters to work on. Too bad he didn't do more Doctor Strange. Yeah, I'm going to have to work on coloring and drawing inside the frame of the camera. When will I learn? Looks like I made the eyes pretty crazy. One's way open and one's really, really small. But I'm pretty happy with the outline lines. They look pretty strong. This is actually going out tomorrow. I have to wait until my dad's schedule allows things to get mailed. Because as many of you know, I'm in a wheelchair, so I don't exactly mail the things out myself. I get everything ready, but he actually goes to the post office and has the stuff mailed out. All right. That gives you a little taste of the commission I'm working on. So let's read pages 3 and 4 of the interview. When I was younger, it took me years to draw like the John Byrne. And then when I was older, it took me even longer to stop. Some people can pull that sort of draw like someone else stuff off. Like Bernie Wrightson. The drawings are like bear traps. Only a few people have the skill to do that kind of work. You can put 1,000 skinny lines in, but nobody comes close to the sense of light and shadow. Kelly Jones is the only one who comes to mind, who even comes close. I am trying to get away from my classical influences. What was your first job in comics? It was a 10-page story called Max the Hare, about a bunny rabbit. and I was one happy bugger to get it. It was published by some small company that only had 4 black and white books at the time. I didn't even get complimentary copies of the thing. I had to go out and buy them myself. Nice perk of working for a major publisher. Free comics. So tell me, are there any creators that you're dying to work with? Dying? You mean like it's even possible for me to work with? Well, hypothetically. I guess it could be a dead guy even. No. There are guys who I respect or like, but nobody I'd die for. I mean, it's a fat chance in hell that these superstar guys are going to call me up on the phone saying, Sammy, you gotta be on my next gig. Although, as far as top line creators I'd like to collaborate with, the line would go around the block. Mobius once said he liked my work. And that was a great compliment. He's one of the greatest illustrators in the world. I'd kill to work with Mike Kaluta. Any of those classic guys. There is a clique of these superstars, but I don't know any of them. I know that if I sat down and some great illustrator and everybody was off the table, he'd probably say, Sam, your work has too many lines. It's this, it's that. It's blah, 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 blah. And they'd be right. What plans do you have for other Marvel characters? You know, I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world. Things were so with my career before, but at Marvel, I strolled on in, threw a pinup, a Hulk issue, and now I'm slated for another 8-part Marvel Comics Presents Ghost Rider story. Note that never happened. That'll start right after the Wolverine thing. Other than that, maybe I'd like to do Doctor Strange. I can't believe my luck. To walk on into Marvel and draw the characters I grew up reading. Do you aspire to be a regular artist for a monthly series, as seems to be the case for a lot of artists? Or do you want to specialize in unique projects? Ah, the eternal question. The special things are long enough. Believe me. Wolverine will run 8 parts over 4 months. Then Ghost Rider will be another 8 parts. So the Marvel Comics Presents readers will be getting 8 months in a row of me. Every 2 weeks. It seems I'll be in that book until they kick me off or kill me. I do my best work at the 8-page level, though. At least for now. A regular book would kill me now. I might try it, but I'd have mixed feelings if I did it and it turned out bad. For now, this is fine. This is perfect. This way, quality can't slip. If it does, everybody who looks at it knows. You get immediate rejection, even from the laypersons. I have had offers to do series at Marvel and elsewhere, but I prefer to do my work properly. Here's a 2-part question for you. Has anything either very wonderful or very terrible ever happened to you while on an art job? Well, there have been some real bad jobs, sure. There were jobs that turned out to be much more difficult than I originally thought. My work on DC's Sandman, for instance. Overall, I'm not ashamed of it, but it was a little frustrating. I'm very proud of my work on Epicurus the Sage, and of course the Hulk and Wolverine jobs. It's funny, but there's a strong halo effect when you work at a big company. When I find a person who likes to work with me, it's like the whole company likes me. It depends on the people you're working with. It seems as if, say, editor A is nice, then life is good. But if editor B is a grouch, then it gets sticky. It seems like sometimes there is no Marvel or DC, just 50 editors. Another obligatory interview type question. Where do you hope to be a year from now? Well, I'm not going to be doing a Wolverine forever. I can do a book, say, then quit, and people will think I quit or got fired. But it's not really in my game plan to draw only the popular characters. It's only a part of the main body of the work I'd like to do. I'd like to do a black and white comic book. That wouldn't do big guns in sales, but would be more personal as a work. I'd like to take everything I have ever done and integrate it into one story. Except the Marvel stuff, of course, because I don't own it and I'd get sued. But maybe I could allude to it. I'd collect it into one universe. It would be an appalling read, but that's the goal. It seems that more and more limited series or series within a series are being produced later as trade paperbacks. Any plans for Blood Hungry? It's gearing up already. Terry's pretty serious about it, and said he'd be surprised if one didn't come out. However, there is a poster in the works from either some promotional art or the cover from the first issue. I'm not sure. But the book's not even out yet. The other day, I saw an ad for a t-shirt from the first cover, and the book's not even out yet. It's mind-boggling. Last week, I got a call from some guy wanting to buy some of the Wolverine art. Maybe a cover, I don't know. He offered me $800 for the stuff, on the spot. I said again, but the book's not even out yet. I couldn't believe it. But again, it's not my popularity as much as the characters. This guy's wanted an original Wolverine. Nobody calls me up offering $800 a page for my Critters stuff. More people have offered to buy this Wolverine art than anything else I've done. Well, Wolverine is a popular guy. What do you think is so appealing about him? For me, well, I like what John Byrne said, that Wolverine is a Canadian Clint Eastwood. He's an escapist character, and he allows you to safely vent frustrations. He's a perfect capsule for that. If you're having problems with your folks or your editor, he helps you get that out of your system. He's gritty. What superhero would you be, given a choice? I'd say from ages 6 to 11, I wanted to be the Hulk. I was one of those kids who was hounded by civilization. From 11 to 28, it was definitely Spider-Man. I think most people, given a chance, would be Spider-Man. It's not hard to be. And I mean the original Spider-Man, too. Not the got it together, got a gorgeous wife at home Spider-Man either. I'm talking about the Spider-Man who goes out and saves the city, but everyone hates him. He comes home after fighting a bad guy to find he left the milk out and it's spoiled. Tell us about the promotional tour you're on. This guy's gotta be freaking not like hearing the answers to his questions. He sounds like an idiot. Anyways, well, it's 11 dates all over the place. You wake up in a hotel, fly on a plane for a few hours, drive to a store. Plug yourself for hours, go to a hotel, then repeat. The people are really great, though. It makes it all worthwhile. I couldn't organize a tour for the life if my life depended on it. I don't mean to come off like I've got the self-respect of a slug or anything. It's just how I am. I know I'm not the greatest artist in the world. If I thought I was, I'd be acting like a weenie. Any one of these classic guys, John Byrne, Kaluta, Frazetta, could blow me away. If I acted like that, I'd be looking stupid in front of people I respect. You can act all high and mighty, but it doesn't get you anywhere. You're not fooling anybody. There are plenty of guys, not only in the comics industry, that go around acting like some big weenie because they've gotten some degree of success. I don't want to be that. I don't want to become that weenie. And if I ever do become a weenie, Mike, I hope you'll send me a t-shirt that says, I am a weenie, because I will wear it. End of interview. Okay, let's finish this up with just looking at the commission and seeing the progress we've made along the way. As you can see, most of the purple spots are done. There are some rips on his body that could probably use some lighter shades of purple. I don't think I did end up adding them. As you can see, there's the trademark jagged-edged mouth that I put on all my Max pieces. And I'm going for brown for the boots. I'm afraid to lose the lines in the color, but I think you can really see what's going on there. And you see the shine of the paper? That's obviously the water from the watercolors I'm using. If I recall, I was mixing different types of browns and tans and grays to get this shade. In hindsight, I might use a larger brush for a piece like this. I really think I could have covered the entire area of the boots by now if I just used the proper brush. But by using a smaller brush, you do get kind of textures that you don't see. Oh, this is a rare post-Max Batman. I decided to throw up some of his later work here towards the end. Before this, I was focused on showing off the art that came before the Max, and not during the Max, obviously. And here is his Spider-Man, who he obviously wanted to be, according to that interview. What a nerd. There we go. And starting on the next boot there. There's Wandering Stars. That was his very first big break, but that was his kind of his big break in the small pond. If that makes any sense to y'all. Here we have a credits page for their Piranha Press project, that being William Mesner Loebs and Sam Kieth. That was Epicurus the Sage. And here's another modern one. Here's a Joker on the cover of Batman Secrets. He still had it, man. I really love his painted covers at this period. Well, the boots are coming along here. Obviously, I'm touching up some spots there. Maybe some weights that I didn't want there. Here's another Doctor Strange appearance. I love the flow of the cape. It makes me think of Spawn almost. Alright, I still have the background to do. The teeth, the arms. Oh, I'm working on the arms now. I must be grabbing some yellows and golds. But I'll have to finish the mask. And there are some fleshy tones that are exposed due to the rips in his clothing. Not to mention his teeth. I usually go with a blue or a gray, or a bluish gray, when I do the teeth. Here you go. Here's a later one with, it was from the Wolverine and Hulk story. I can't remember if that was actually written by Peter David or if he just wrote that on his own. I'm sure you guys can answer that for me in the comments. And the claws are slowly coming together here. I believe I mentioned earlier that the reason that they have like a splatter effect towards the upper arm is because he dips his arms in lava, and that's where his yellow comes from on his costume, or at least on his arms. And my shadow is laying over the corner of the paper, and it makes me wish I had actually gone a little darker. Here, this is from my own collection. I've got a couple of Sam Kieth sketchbooks. They're pretty cool. Mostly they're some of his later artwork. Here's another page from the Sandman. Another one of my favorites. He was really good at drawing demons. I'm still using a chisel tip to get some of the detailed lines there on the higher end of his sleeve. Don't try this at home. Use the appropriate brush. I just happen to have kind of mastered the chisel brush. I always like this cover. This is, there's a Weapon X interview in here, but it's Barry Windsor Smith with a Sam Kieth cover here. But the interview is really good. He reveals things that he lies about later on. You know, when it's easier to just be lazy and just throw blame around at the people around him than saying what really happened. Here we go. Another one of those early works that I really, really dig. I love the details of the lines. These characters I've never ever heard of. There's Blood of Dracula. I probably should have blown that up bigger, but the little secret to editing these things is that I save little blocks at a time, and if I screw up, I screw up. I can't fix them later on. I've obviously moved on to the second hand, which is a lot smoother, a lot faster. The hand's not as big. There's that Sandman image again, and probably another mistake I can probably take care of next time. Man, I really love the way I did the eyes. Not to toot my own horn, but toot, toot. That's for all you Arn Anderson fans out there. I'm sure there's dozens of you. There you go. I also like his Toxic Crusaders comics. They always had really great covers. For some reason, I'm wondering if Marie Severin had something to do with those books. I know she worked on the Coneheads book. That was drawn. That was penciled by Tom Richmond from Mad Magazine. I know she added the inks. But that's clearly not a Sam Kieth trivia for y'all. Here we go. Now I'm on to the mask at last. I still have to do the teeth, and I have to do something with the background. There you go. Zen Intergalactic Ninja. An Amazing Heroes cover. And some of his modern work on Batman. Pretty cool stuff. It's funny looking at his the evolution of his Ghost Rider. Like, you can tell that his covers came a lot later than that Amazing Heroes issue. Then here's the Craptacular B-sides. He only did covers for the series, but I always liked what he did with the covers. Oh, there we go. I'm adding a blue, apparently, to the background. It's been a while, so I can't remember exactly what I did with the background. Another Craptacular B-sides cover. Love the way the light's coming through the blinds in the background. Yeah, see the way the paper's shaking there? That probably means I'm working off camera again. Like a dope. And this should be the final issue of Craptacular B-sides. I guess that wasn't considered a hit for the company. Or else we'd see lots of Craptacular B-sides merch everywhere. And the blue's coming along. It's starting to look a bit like clouds almost. Now that's just a happy accident. I didn't plan that. If you guys get that effect. If you don't get that effect, just pretend I'm not saying anything. Yeah, I think I wanted a bigger contrast between that purple and that blue. They do clash a bit, but I think a darker blue, in hindsight, would have probably been the way to go. Oh, it looks like I am adding a darker shade there. Now, I can't really show this off now because I've already put it in an envelope to be mailed tomorrow. Alright, we are running out of time. I am going to read you another hot tip from the world's ugliest book. You all know what it looks like, so I won't interrupt the video. And let's see. This quote is hot tips from business. Alright, here we go. Here is John Byrne, who says, "You still have to crank these things out every month. There is not much good in having a superstar who is a flake. If you've got a superstar and you get 3 issues out of him, and then you have to do 2 villains, he's not much use to you." I like to really meditate on these things and think about what people have said before us. Of course, John Byrne didn't see the potential in a Rob Liefeld or a Jim Lee before Image, and he just considered them prima donnas, so really, what did he really know? Well, it looks like I'm pretty much done there. There you go. I hope I flip around the camera. Well, there's my ceiling, guys. Wasn't that exciting?